Like, I don't know, the fact that Deborah could type that out and not immediately reconsider, like, everything in her life is kind of astounding. Like, maybe she had, like, a lobotomy or she hit her head or something, because something is very wrong with that line of text, and the fact that it's not immediately self-apparent and she didn't, like, delete her entire blog and just kind of get off the internet in general is really concerning, and I think maybe somebody should check in on her. Hey, how's it going? So, recently I've been a tiny bit inactive. I've been trying to fix my video quality and, well, I've been a little bit lazy with writing scripts. But with Pride Month in full swing now, I thought it would be a really good idea to go over the intelligent and well articulated opinions of a transphobe and mock them relentlessly. That transphobe would be Debra So, who pretty convincingly proves that a degree doesn't necessarily prove your intelligence in the slightest, especially when you're talking about things you don't really know a lot about, like trans issues, the ones she never stops talking about. I thought to celebrate Pride Month, it'd be great to go through one of Debra So's fantastic and well researched articles called Scientists Bow to Transgender Activists Once Again. It's a doozy. I do think it's a little bit funny how, for an academic, Deborah can't even get past, like, a title without conspiratorial language. It's very presumptuous and not exactly well befitting an academic, you know? Like, oh, an institution disagreed with me. Being an academic, I should review them and maybe change what I believe. No, the trans activists have crushed this institution and I'm right in every way. Oh, okay. I mean, pop off, I guess? Before I really start getting into the article, please consider liking and subscribing. I know I hate e-begging, but we are 3 away from 10, and I would really appreciate hitting that milestone, and you guys have no idea how much your support means to me. Consider sticking around, and with that, we can finally get into this. To begin, Debra So complains in her article about how an academic institution is now requiring those that publish under it to explain how gender and sex were accounted for and how gender stereotypes might be perpetuated. Obviously, being smart, rational, and mature people, we should understand that our actions have a thing called consequences, and it's important to account for them when we do them. Debra So doesn't. What possible issue could Deborah have with basic responsibility and understanding that your actions, they probably have consequences, especially when you're studying things that might affect social roles or how people might view the opposite sex? Well, because to Deborah, the idea that gender and sex might have different meanings and might be associated with different things that you need to pay attention to when you're crafting studies is horrific and inexcusable and proof that trans activists have maligned the integrity of academia and subverted it. This may be extreme, but this is kind of how, like, a Nazi views academic institutions. Like, no, they can't disagree with me because maybe they have new evidence or a different perspective, or they're analyzing the evidence differently, or they're analyzing society differently. No, they're being controlled and pressured by malicious forces that have some covert influence, or that society is broadly allowing to crush academic integrity, to destroy the fabric of society. Like, it's kind of ridiculous, and this, like, weird apocalyptic rhetoric, or not apocalyptic, but very conspiratorial and kind of paranoid rhetoric, kind of makes it seem like trans people are like the boogeyman in Deborah's closet, and that nobody can just agree with them because their ideas are so ridiculous. No, they have to be subverting and pressuring people. Like, I don't, it's just it's very weird to me. There's literally no indication there's any pressure on this academic institution at all from trans activists, but Deborah is so strongly entrenched in her beliefs that the idea that an accredited academic institution would disagree with her has to necessitate some weird narrative of trans pressure and trans attacks on academic integrity. Like, no, they just disagreed with you. They think you're wrong, and that's okay. It's really pitiful and reeks of very dogmatic thinking to have such a position like this, or to at least act as if this is what's happening, especially since scientists have pretty demonstrably been researching controversial topics for decades now, and they really don't care what people think in the long run. Like, seriously, when's the last time you saw a CNN news anchor blast some random academic article that said something they didn't like? Like, that almost never happens, and I struggle to find any examples at all, but Deborah lives in some weird shadow realm where trans people are, like, burning down Harvard every week. To strengthen her argument, though, Deborah asserts that sex and gender are both biological in nature because, I kid you not, you can't persuade somebody to not have gender dysphoria. Like, I don't know, the fact that Deborah could type that out and not immediately reconsider like everything in her life is kind of astounding. Like maybe she had like a lobotomy or she hit her head or something, because something is very wrong with that line of text. And the fact that it's not immediately self-apparent and she didn't like delete her entire blog and just kind of get off the internet in general is really concerning, and I think maybe somebody should check in on her. Gender dysphoria is described by the American Psychiatric Association as when one's sexual identity fails to line up with their desired gender, their desired archetype that society has assigned traits to, which is why trans individuals change things like their hair or their clothes and how they act or how they present themselves, strictly non biological things. Like, obviously, biology is a part of it, but mainly because biology has been made a part of the gender roles too. It's not like they only want to change their sexual characteristics, in which case they would just want to change their sex. They want to change their social roles and social conventions, their gendered attributes that society has assigned arbitrarily. Think of it like this: a big, strong, burly warrior man in the 1950s that's undergoing gender dysphoria doesn't want to be a housewife and wear pink frilly dresses because he wants to change his chromosomes. No, he wants to change his social role and how he is presenting socially. Now, obviously, like biological characteristics play a part, but only because we've associated so many social roles with biological characteristics. It's not because they want to change their XY chromosome, it's because they want another social role in society, they want another gendered social archetype. In fact, Deborah's point is further disproved by two things, actually. One, some trans people actually don't care about how their body is presented and only want the social roles and social characteristics. So, it's not biologically based, and there are numerous societies throughout history that have changed gender association not through some sort of deep unsettlement with their chromosomes or something, but because of their desire to fulfill a different social role. The fact that I could find these like really easy examples in like 15 minutes or less kind of really shows how little Deborah So knows for somebody who supposedly spent years of their life working on this. Newsflash, you've wasted your life. Adding to my theory that Debra suffered an unfortunate lobotomy, she can't even keep her own arguments straight. In a debate with streamer Vosh, Deborah uses detransitioning individuals as an affront to Vosh's arguments. Yet that kind of raises the question, which one is it? Is like gender dysphoria socially based and therefore able to be dropped, or is it inseparably and sexually attached to people's biology? You have to pick one. You can't be a weasel that uses one or the other whenever it's convenient. Deborah then goes on to passionately point out how ridiculous and stupid it is to change how we consider and conceptualize scientific concepts and social based ones too over 0.8% of the population. Deborah needs to grow up, honestly. The idea that somebody that's so invested in science, a field brimming with change and ideas, would be scared of change that allows a greater expression of human freedom and a greater diversity of thought is pitiful and really gross. Do you think she would have said this about any other minority groups had her circumstances in life been different? Because you can apply this argument to literally any other minority group you don't like. To Deborah, the idea of doing basic things like understanding how your actions might impact other groups or taking responsibility is impossible and fantastical and makes her deeply uncomfortable. You're getting the clear picture on this, right? It's all just whining. The validation of trans people really hurts Deborah deeply, and she cannot consider for a moment that her ideology, the stuffy and stupid beliefs of conservative ideologues that wish to actually degrade academic institutions, are wrong and misguided. You might be asking, why does Deborah, an academic, use language like this? She isn't an academic, or anything close to it at all. Whatever soul or spirit guided Deborah's love of science was eroded and blasted away by her inability to engage critically with information that combats her. Like, seriously, it takes me less than 20 seconds, or up to a minute, let's say, to, peacefully explain how gender refers to societally made constructs, and even if there are biological elements that trans people by and large want the social benefits and the social roles and the social archetype that we've constructed. How can you not get that? How long does it take you, especially when it's an arbitrary like division we've made? Can you not accept that? What do you gain from such a restrictive interpretation of social like constructions within society? You gain nothing. except for arbitrarily harming a group of people and degrading their mental health. It's almost like she's not actually interested in the truth or helping trans people. She just wants to fuck them over because she's a genuinely bad person. Like, what kind of arrogance does it take to see an academic institution go, hey, we're using a different definition because we feel like it allows us to arrive at better conclusions, and you assume they've been, like, assaulted by trans activists? How inflated is your ego to assume that you are so high and mighty in determining the validity of definitions? Like, you you gain nothing. What I know that I've said this so many times, but I'm shocked by how low people can stoop. Debra goes on to complain about new terms that are a little bit more like inclusive, like some people, like a very small minority, calling breastfeeding like chest feeding instead. And personally, get over it. Language evolves, and if you don't like the language it's evolving in, that's tough, especially when it doesn't hurt anybody for people to use slightly different words. It's not dehumanizing them. Dehumanizing them is claiming that they're not valid or writing whole books about how their entire identity is based upon a myth. I don't know. I just feel like if Deborah wants to talk about dehumanizing, then she needs to go take a long, hard look in like the mirror or something. Things get really disgusting at the last part of this article, though, where she throws in this random assertion that men are somehow faking being women to commit crimes. I don't need to explain much about this, but trans people are demonstrably more likely to be the victim of crimes in every single case, and to act as if like they are like the enemies in the night. It's disgusting. It's inexcusable rhetoric, and it's incredibly irresponsible, and it mimics every hateful ideologue that has sought to marginalize groups. I don't know how Deborah can look at herself or sleep comfortably after writing things like this that are so blatantly false and require such a small degree of fact checking and maybe just, I don't know, a few extra IQ points. It's pretty clear that Deborah So has a huge blind spot that allows her really gross opinions to kind of filter through and basically block out any sort of cognitive function or neurons that might be firing in her head. Um, it's really gross. It's really bad, and I don't know how you could write this right before Pride Month. Like, seriously? Have you no self awareness? Gender and sex the same. Oh. I'm sure Deborah will appreciate that when I'm having gender with her father. Forced and kind of bad dad sex joke aside, please consider liking and subscribing. I really do appreciate all the support, and obviously, have yourself a happy Pride Month, and don't let any stupid transphobe or homophobe or whatever a phobe bring you down. You're perfectly valid in your identity. With that, you have yourself a wonderful day and one hell of a good month because I certainly will. Goodbye and peace.